why is it so hard for Christian men to quit porn? What is the secret?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a few questions that we ask. Um, there's the proverb, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. And so I feel like we really need to start there. Like, is the root cause of why this person keeps going back to porn, is it because they are like that dog returning to his vomit?
Yeah, so it goes back to identity.
Right, right. Why does a dog return to his vomit? Well, because he's a dog. We wouldn't expect him to do anything else. And so identity is a huge part of it. Like Christianity has been basically our cultural religion for 300 years,
Right.
and that cultural religion brings with it a lot of nominalism and self-deception and things like that. So
Yes, 100%. So that would be on a macro scale, zooming out. Probably the overwhelming problem is that most people that say in the West that they're a Christian, they're really not connected with God in a deep way. It's really just sort of a badge. Now times are changing. Like, it's not going to be like that forever. It's not going to be trendy to have a religion. It's that's slowly passing away. But I guess maybe if I point the question even deeper, uh, let's say you actually have a believer who is struggling with this sin. They are regenerate. They are converted. They are born again. They do have a walk with God, and they can't stop. Let's say at an early age they got hooked on it, and this has been like a decade long thing prior to their conversion, and they're still struggling with it post conversion. So what would you say is the reason why why they can't stop?
I think a big part of it is because we're in such an individualistic society, and God lays out the framework for overcoming sin in Galatians 6, among other places, where he says, if one of you has fallen into sin, then those of you who are spiritual should restore such a brother in meekness
Right.
and gentleness. And that's just not happening. For one thing, because porn is kind of a secret sin that nobody necessarily knows about. And for
Mm.
another thing, even if they did, are they going to have that awkward conversation? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. No, that's 100%. This is actually a good thing to think about, that this idea of community is not just pushed in the New Testament. It's pushed in virtually every recovery program or system in general. Like, so in other words, the world on a grand scale has caught on to the idea that community is like maybe the number one factor in recovering. Not just seeing somebody who has recovered, who can offer hope, but talking to people that are still in it, so you feel like you're not alone. The guys who started Alcoholics Anonymous, many people know. I mean, it wasn't anything grand. It was like two guys calling each other at night, crying on the phone about how they're addicted, and then they just magically realize, wait, we've been sober for like 6 months. What is going on? We could start a program out of this. So it's an authentic showing up and really being real and open and transparent, and that's really hard with something like pornography. It's not something that it might be. I mean, is it the most shameful? I'm not sure, or the most shame producing addiction maybe that there is. Sometimes when you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict, it's like it's still glorified in music and TV, but a guy watching porn alone is never really seen as like a positive thing in mass media. So now one thing I want to talk about though. So I'm actually going to take a different stance than you. I actually think community is a huge deal, but there actually is something probably even deeper, an even greater reason why Christian men can't quit porn. Just in my experience talking with different clients, experiencing different group counselings, and there seems to be one golden thread that keeps showing up every time without a doubt. And it's this: they don't believe that there's a life beyond it. Like, these guys, the reason that they can't quit is because they can't imagine themselves happier without it. We're talking about authentic people that are struggling, people that are broken over sin. We're not talking about people that are just like casual churchgoers. This is something, because even, again, going back to groups like Alcoholics Anonymous and even secular groups, all of them have this dynamic of deepening one's connection to God. And they're like, if you're uncomfortable with an objective, real, personal God, why don't you just say the universe or the collective conscious? So, like, they all fundamentally realize that spirituality or some sort of spiritual component is necessary for recovery. So the problem is, because we have a Western society that is full of sort of surface level cultural Christianity, and our churches are set up to almost go against community, right? Our churches are set up in a way where, like, you walk in and there's a team that sort of does their worship for you, or a team that you kind of are a spectator, and then you walk away. And especially if it's a grand megachurch, you sort of walk away and don't really talk to people because it's overwhelming. Who do you talk to? How do you get deep with people? How do you open up to people? And that's why small groups were created. And many people don't even go to small groups, because committing in our individualistic society where we want our own islands and our own space and our own families, going to small group on top of going to a Sunday service is a lot of work. It's out of the comfort zone. It's breaking that natural homeostasis. So 100%, two main things of why Christian men can't quit porn. There's two things. Probably a huge component is the lack of community with other brothers that have different giftings. And then overwhelmingly, in my opinion, and just in my own experience, it's these guys just don't believe that they can be happy without it. When you hear things like Psalm 16:11, in your presence there's fullness of joy, they're like, there's a part of them that's like, they'll say out loud, yeah, that's beautiful, but there's a part of them that's like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because typically when there's some sort of idol in our hearts, we have this ideal about it, like this, I want this house on a hill, like by a river. And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, like I would be happy if I had that. Or right. Some car that you really want, like, oh man, every time you see it, you're like, I would be happy if I had that. But with porn, it's like, there's not really like this ideal. Like you said, it's probably at least one of the most shameful sins. And so, it's almost like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Like every time somebody does it, but then the compulsion is so strong and the desire is so strong, like in the moment, that becomes like this consuming idol. And so it's almost like pleasure is like this God that is so powerful that they can't restrain themselves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. We at Heart and Soul are very passionate about helping men quit porn, quit what's holding them back from really a thriving relationship with God and becoming more like Christ. We are passionate about giving men the tools to find this fruit of the Spirit of self-control, of self-mastery, of really people finding hope again and finding that happiness on the other side, finding a joy in God that only exists in this freedom. Freedom is doing what you want to do. And if what you want is God, that is the most blessed state. Thanks for listening.